let's speak now to MEC for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Sihle Zikalala. KZN, thank you so much for your time. Give us a sense of how things are on the ground.
Well, thanks for having us in your program. For now, there are no major incidents that have been reported, but we are on high alert. Our team are on standby in all districts. The areas that, in terms of the forecast, we've been warned on, it's inland areas such as eMadlangeni, Umzinyathi, Umshwathi, Umgungundlovu, and we would want to plead with all people in those areas to be on alert, to understand that once it starts raining, they must not drive through low-lying bridges, but those who reside in low-lying areas and at the bank of the rivers must quickly evacuate if there are instructions from the teams that request them to evacuate.
And KZN, that has been a challenge on the ground as well, when, you know, some of the officials are trying to speak to these community members to move from these low-lying areas. Others say, we don't want to move, we don't know where to go, but others are simply just being stubborn. Are you prepared for that possibility, and how then are the officials going to deal with that?
Well, we are prepared. We will be working with councillors if we reach that situation. While there have been a reluctance on the side of community members to move when there are warnings, of late we are beginning to realize that they respond positively. And that's why in the recent disaster, or in the recent incidents where we have had heavy rains, such as last month in Umgungundlovu, Umsunduze to be specific, we didn't have any deaths because we were able to send messages, and people responded in a manner that is responsible.
I know that, you know, of course, you know, the teams are out in full force. The teams are waiting for any eventualities. How worried are you, though, as a province that, you know, should the rains continue, you may find yourself in a situation that you found yourselves in the past?
We are quite worried, but we hope that the rain that might come would not reach the level we experienced in April and May this year, because that time we experienced heavy rains within a short period, which caused serious damage and disaster. We are hoping that if it rains, it will not be so heavy like that time. But also through our teams, we are ready to ensure proper evacuations for all areas. And we are also, we have profiled community services centers where people can stay for a short time in the case where they need to evacuate their homes.
And how short is that time likely to be? Because I'm sure others might say, what happens if then their homes are then destroyed and all of that? So how short are you envisioning a time for them to be there?
Well, we say if it happens, we will move them to community centers and then assess the damage that would have happened, and then ensure that if there's no damage, bring back people to their homes. It's something that we've been doing, and of late, I think we are able to manage it properly. As I'm referring to the case of last month in Umsunduze, we were able to move the community to the nearby church, and within 3 days after we had cleaned the area, all people moved back to their homes.
And I was listening to Minister in the Presidency, Mondli Gungubel, of course, giving an update on also, you know, some of the responses that are being put in place there in the province, especially when you look at the difficulties that as a province you faced when it came to the April and the May floods, and just how, you know, that posed a serious challenge for the province that you are now leading, COCTA, you know, the COCTA department. Let's then look at that and the people that then found themselves displaced. Where are we when it comes to making sure that all of them are out of some of the places that they've been in, because there have also been some of the challenges in that area?
Yes, initially we had a problem with bureaucratic processes, and that included the issue of conducting thorough assessments for ensuring that applications to release the disaster funds were properly handled. So that process took long. The second problem was the availability of land to build houses for people. And I think now we've been able to move people out of community halls. I think there are very few halls that are remaining. The majority of the people have been taken to the temporary residential shelters, which are decent with respect and confidentiality that people need per families. So the process is on. And we had set a timeline that by the end of November, we would have met that, but we were left with few due to the reasons that I mentioned.
And, you know, when you listen to Mr. Kongobele and what he says that the word challenges, and he does admit that, you know, the response time and efforts when it comes to, you know, some of the areas needs improvement. And when you go back to what you saw in the past, particularly April and May, how prepared would you say the province is right now to deal with any eventuality? Are things better than where they were a few months ago?
Definitely better. I can say we've learned from the past experience. We learn how to ensure that we send messages that are alerting communities. We learn to ensure proper coordination within departments and between spheres of government, local, provincial, and national. We have to work on bureaucratic challenges that are there in terms of interventions to allow speed interventions. And I think those are things that we need to work on with speed. But in terms of coordination, I can ascertain that we have upscaled coordination, and we are at a level that is more higher and prepared than we were in April and May.
And the other reality is that, you know, climate change is really making its presence felt in our lives. And I wonder what plans are also in place there to also cushion the blow for some of those on the ground?
Definitely, climate change is the cause of the current challenges when it comes to inclement weather for the province. We're working on the climate change resilient program, and that includes the Provincial Council on Climate Change, which is composed of the government, the NGOs, the civil society, and business community. We also are continuously engaging with all communities and stakeholders on issues of climate change. And that also includes engaging even with traditional leaders on where people are located to build their houses. And all of those things are a package within one program that we are leading.
All right, MEC, good luck to you as you say that you're hoping that, you know, these rains are not going to be as bad as they were in the past. I'm sure a lot of people crossing their fingers to make sure that that doesn't happen. Thank you so much for your time. We'll keep checking in with the province to see how things are going. That was the MEC for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Sihle Zikalala.